I'm Roger Bilas, Georgetown Brewing Company. We're here in Georgetown at our brewery. This is the tasting room / retail shop. We don't actually sell pints here, but we give free samples of all our beers to whoever happens to walk in and is interested. We sell growlers, kegs to go, have the usual assortment of t-shirts and baseball caps and whatnot. We started selling beer almost 9 years ago now. And the niche we identified that we wanted to fill was to be the pale ale from Washington for Washington. At the time, we had lots and lots of breweries here in Washington and in surrounding states, but none of the Washington breweries were really going after the pale ale space like we felt it merited and like we wanted to do. So, that was an opportunity that we felt existed, and despite the people telling us that if you hadn't established yourself as a brewery yet, you had missed the boat. We felt that people here, one, there's always room for a good product, and I think that's even more true today, or more obvious today than it's ever been. But we felt that if we could make a product that would compete, because the bar just had been raised higher and higher as far as product quality. So we couldn't get in there with a halfway effort. We needed a really competitive product, but we felt like that was something we could do. And right now we're only selling beer in Washington and Idaho. We only sell draft beer. Back then we came into the market with just one product, pale ale in half barrel, which is a full-size keg. We picked a very narrow focus to get things going here for our company, and that's still our flagship and the focus of what we do. We have a handful of other beers available now, but really we're a pale ale brewery, draft-only brewery that happens to sell some growlers, and we make a couple other beers too, but they're really more for fun than anything else. Typical bar in the Northwest maybe has a dozen tap handles, 10 somewhere in that neck of the woods, and we have 100 breweries here in the state. Bunch of breweries from Oregon, Montana, California, all over the place. Imports, our domestic breweries that are selling beer, here in our backyard in Seattle and Washington in general. And we feel really fortunate to get one tap handle, and it's there's a bunch of breweries with a bunch of good beers out there trying to win one tap handle, and to expect to have 2 or 3 or 4 tap handles at a lot of bars is, I think, really difficult. I think you're going to have a hard time doing that. We've just sort of said, hey, if you like our pale ale, in our case pale, but you like our flagship beer, and you can, we want you to be able to find it. So if we are fortunate enough to win a tap handle placement somewhere, we want it to be our pale ale. This is our production facility. We just built this thing about 3 years ago, and it's a 60-barrel brew house. We originally started on a 15-barrel brew house, which is still tucked back there against the back wall. We still use it quite frequently, actually, for doing some yeast propagation, for doing some experimental batches, some small batch stuff that we do to have fun and take interesting things to brewers' nights and out to the beer festivals, Beer Commission, Brewers Guild beer festivals, and those types of things, and to give our walk-in growler customers something different, something special to kind of give them a treat for finding their way to our brewery. We're going to produce about 33,000 barrels of beer this year, which probably puts us about third or so for breweries in the state, behind Red Hook and Mac and Jack's. Red Hook's probably doing about double that. Mac and Jack's is doing a little bit more, I would expect. I'm not sure how much. In the big picture of things, we'll be maybe around the 50th largest craft brewery in the country, something like that. So we're not, taking over the world by any means, but like I said, we have a pretty simple business model, just draft only. We're only selling in Washington and Idaho at this point in time. That said, I think, we're seeing a good level of success. Manny and I wanted to get to this level, we wanted to be the pale ale from Washington for Washington. Well, Washington, a lot of people live here, a lot of those people happen to like pale ale, and we're lucky that right now they're enjoying our pale ale. So the equipment over here was our original brew house. So the tank with the funnel on top was our original mash and lauter tun. The tank just behind it was the kettle and whirlpool. It's a 15-barrel system, direct fire, very simple, very straightforward. It's what you're going to see in the vast majority of microbreweries around Washington and elsewhere. You know, from there, we've graduated to this, which is a 60-barrel brew house. We have the match lauter tun on the far side, kettle here next to me, and whirlpool on the far side. So we've separated a couple of the functions. Batch size is 4 times larger, and you know, I guess it's much more efficient for us. We have a steam system, so our heat source is actually steam rather than, you know, a big natural gas burner. Making this much beer, you know, not that it's that much, but you know, it's more than a lot of people want to bite off. It takes a lot of investment. Holy cow! You know, we've been constantly feeding money into this thing. You know, growing our 15-barrel brew house, you know, that was a half-mile south of here. You know, buying more tanks, buying more kegs, constantly plowing any profits back into the company, and that's continued to this day, obviously. You know, luckily, we were able to start this back when it was a little easier to borrow money. So we were able to get these loans in place and get that financing all buttoned down. And, you know, fortunately, we've been able to continue to grow at a reasonable rate. You know, managing growth is one of the trickiest things. You know, when you know, if you can find that demand and, you know, you're trying to meet it, you know, to do it, I guess, organically, where you're just self-funding growth out of, you know, plowing profits back into the company. You know, that works, and we did a lot of that, and we continue to do a lot of that, but at a certain point you also need capital from somewhere else. You know, you need a bank to loan you money, you know, some individual to loan you money, or you need to take on investors. And we're not willing to take on investors to be able to grow faster. So, you know, we did about everything we could do here to increase our production capacity, to solidify our presence in Georgetown. Since we're Georgetown Brewing Company, we really felt like we needed to stay here in our neighborhood. To do all that without, you know, I guess if you want to look at it, frame it negatively, without selling out. You know, that said, we're not trying to take over the world. We're not trying to take over west of the Mississippi or the nation. So, you know, we have different goals than, you know, some of the bigger breweries, you know, that we've seen along the way that went public. You know, the Pyramids, the Red Hooks, Whitmer, you know, like, and there's a bunch more. But those are some local examples people around here have heard of and are aware of. And, you know, we didn't do this to get rich. We did this to have fun and you know, create a product we believe in, work with people we enjoy working with, and be a part of an industry that we really enjoy. So here we are. So far, so good.